Would you still call it love if it taught your child to fear you? I used to believe grief made people softer, gentler, like water wearing down rock, reshaping you into something quieter. But I was wrong. Some people don't get softer. They just find new ways to control the silence. Hi, I'm Anna. I'm 32. 3 years ago, I buried my husband. The concrete didn't fall on him all at once. That's what they told me. The scaffolding gave way in stages. He had time to scream, to try to run. They never found his wedding ring. Our son David was 2 when it happened. He doesn't remember the funeral, or the way I collapsed when they handed me the lunch pail he left behind that morning, still packed with 2 sandwiches and a tiny post-it that said, "Tell D I love him extra today." We moved in with my mother that same week. And at first it worked. She kept us fed, warm, alive. She let me sleep while she played with David. She dropped him off at preschool when I couldn't get out of bed. People said, "You're so lucky to have her." And I believed them. But lately, something's changed. Not in her. In David. He used to talk nonstop, narrating everything, making up bedtime sagas about night dragons and moon bears. He'd draw me pictures with glitter glue and ask 10 questions before breakfast. Now he flinches when I enter a room too fast. He stares at the same spot on the wall for minutes at a time. And he doesn't want to play anymore. When I asked him what was wrong, he whispered, "Grandma said not to tell, or it'll make you cry harder." And listen. I know what you're thinking. I thought it too. Kids say weird stuff. Trauma works in loops. He's just sad, Anna. That's all it is. Even our child therapist said it could be delayed grief. But then why did my mom laugh when I told her what he said? Why did she wave it off with a smile and say, "Don't be dramatic, honey. He's just imaginative." And if he's just imaginative, then why did he draw a picture last week of me in a box? You ever look at your child and wonder who they're protecting you from? Last Thursday, I had a dentist appointment. Just an hour away. So I did something I never thought I'd do to my own mother. I left my phone recording under David's bed. What I heard didn't sound like abuse. There was no shouting, no threats. But I'm telling you, it felt like a scalpel to the heart. She spoke in the softest voice. Sweet as honey. Calm as prayer. Daddy died because Mommy didn't listen. Mommy cries because she was a bad wife. If you're a good boy, Mommy won't cry as much. Okay. She's not hurting him. She's molding him. With shame. With silence. With a kind of logic that wraps guilt in a lullaby. And now I don't know what's worse, that I can't prove it, or that I believed in her help so much, I missed the damage. The voice recording is still on my phone. I haven't deleted it. Sometimes I play it late at night when David's asleep. The screen glows in the dark, her voice leaking through the speaker like poison in warm milk. What if the worst kind of manipulation sounds exactly like love? I know how this sounds. But if you heard your mother say those words to your son, would you ever sleep again? In David's latest drawing, the sky is gray. The house has no windows. And I don't have a mouth. I asked him gently, "Why didn't you draw, Grandma?" He looked at me serious. "Because she's inside the walls." I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I laid there, next to my son's soft breathing, staring at the ceiling while the words repeated over and over in my head. Daddy died because Mommy didn't listen. If you're a good boy, Mommy won't cry as much. Have you ever wanted to scream into a pillow so badly your jaw locks instead? The next morning, I tried to act normal. I made oatmeal, tied David's shoes, gave him 2 squeezes and a forehead kiss before preschool. He didn't look me in the eye once. At drop-off, his teacher pulled me aside. "Is everything okay at home?" "David's been..." She paused. Quiet. Hesitant. He used to tell us the wildest stories. Lately, it's like he's afraid to say the wrong thing. My stomach dropped. Wrong thing according to who? When I got back home, Mom was folding towels in the laundry room, humming to herself. Calm. Like she hadn't just rewritten my son's brain in the softest, most surgical way possible. I stood there, gripping the phone in my pocket, thumb hovering over the recording. But I didn't press play. I didn't say a word. Because part of me still wasn't ready to believe it. She took care of you when you couldn't move. She stayed when everyone else left. She's your mother. You ever start questioning your own memory, just because someone smiles while they're hurting you? That night, I sat David down with some crayons and asked if he wanted to draw something happy. He nodded slowly and drew a big red circle. Then a small stick figure. Just one. I asked gently, "Who's that?" He whispered, "It's me." In the quiet place. That night, I found an old photo album in Mom's closet. It had been buried under sweaters, not displayed like the others. When I opened it, the first photo was of me at 4 years old. In the corner, someone had written in faded pen, "Anna's so serious. Always watching." Every photo after that was the same. Me stiff, alone in frame. My smile never quite reaching my eyes. I suddenly realized I don't remember laughing in that house as a child. Not once. Isn't that strange? I started researching apartments that night. Just browsing. Tiny spaces. One bedroom. Maybe a kitchenette. Far from perfect. But every listing felt like oxygen. The next morning, I dropped David off and stopped at the pharmacy. I needed something for the headaches. The woman behind the counter smiled at me, small, kind. Rough week? She asked. I nodded. But my voice caught on something sharp. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. Would you stay, just because you owe someone your survival? Mom posted a photo that afternoon. David smiling, holding a plate of cookies. Caption, grateful for this little angel. He's my whole heart. The comments poured in. You're such an amazing grandma. Anna's lucky to have you. We should all be more like you. I stared at the screen like it was lying to me on purpose. That evening, I went to toss laundry in the dryer. And I found something wedged behind the detergent bottle. A small spiral notebook. David's name was written on the front in big, blocky letters. But the handwriting inside wasn't his. It was my mother's. Dozens of little affirmations written over and over again. Mommy gets sad because I don't listen. If I am good, I make Mommy happy. Daddy went away because Mommy yelled. I stood in the middle of the laundry room, holding the notebook like it was toxic. She wasn't just whispering to him. She was scripting him. You ever find something so gentle, so subtle, it makes you question whether it's evil or just love gone rotten? The notebook sits on my nightstand now, wrapped in a Ziploc bag like evidence. Its pages still smell like lavender detergent and lemon cookies. That night, when I asked David what he wanted to be when he grows up, he looked at me with those glassy blue eyes and said, someone who doesn't make you cry. There's a moment when denial dies. Not with a bang. Not even with a sob. Just stillness. A kind of mental click like a door locking from the inside. For me, that moment came on a Wednesday. It was raining. David was playing with a small plastic knight figurine. Just tapping it on the windowsill over and over. He didn't speak. Didn't even look up when I came in. And then I saw it, a thin red line around his wrist. Like something had been tied there. Something too tight. I crouched beside him. Did you hurt yourself, baby? He didn't answer. But I noticed something else. The knight he was tapping wasn't his. It was from a set my mother had given him, the ones she said were too special to take out of her room. I walked quietly down the hall. Her door was cracked. I pushed it open. Her room was spotless. Always is. Everything in its place: porcelain angels, quilted pillows, scented candles in symmetrical rows. But behind the curtain, hidden between the wall and dresser, was a plastic storage bin. I pulled it out. Inside were drawings. Dozens of them. David's. Torn, crumpled, many of them stained with something sticky and sweet, like juice or syrup. I recognized his fire dragons, the ones he used to be proud of. They were ripped in half. At the bottom was a rolled-up paper. When I flattened it, my chest seized. It was a family portrait. Me, David, and my husband. Someone had scratched over my husband's face in thick black crayon. Underneath, in careful handwriting, my mother's, it said, "Bad men leave." I stood there holding that paper, tears dripping onto the eyes she had erased. And I whispered, "You're still taking him away, aren't you? He's been dead 3 years. But somehow she's still turning him into a ghost that haunts us." You ever realize the person you thought saved you was just keeping you quiet long enough to shape the story? That night, I couldn't pretend anymore. I told David we were going on a little adventure and packed an overnight bag. We checked into a cheap motel by the highway. One bed. Flickering light. The kind of place that smells like old cigarettes even in the non-smoking rooms. David smiled. He said, "It's like a dragon cave." And then he asked, "Is Grandma coming too?" I said no. He paused. Then whispered, "Will I be in trouble for that?" That's when I knew. It wasn't just sadness. She had trained him, gently, surgically, to associate happiness with guilt. Separation with punishment. Would you forgive someone if all they did was bend the truth until your child broke? The next morning I turned on my phone and saw a post. My mother, smiling in the kitchen, holding a batch of muffins. Caption. Woke up to an empty house. Pray for us. My daughter and grandson are missing. One comment stood out. I always knew Anna was unstable. Thank God that boy has you. I had 3 missed calls and a voicemail. Her voice, calm, concerned, falsely maternal. Anna. Sweetheart. I'm worried sick. You need rest. Come home. Let me help. You're just overwhelmed again. That word. Again. Like I'd been the problem before. Like this was a cycle I was creating, not escaping. I turned off my location settings. Created a new email. Called the therapist and asked if we could do a session remotely, just David and me. She said yes. And I cried harder than I had in months. Because someone believed me. Even if she couldn't fix it, she heard it. That night in the motel room, I told David we could decorate the lamp with his drawings. He beamed. Drew 3 little figures. Me, him, and a red dragon. Underneath, he wrote, "We guard each other." I know this isn't the kind of abuse people believe. There are no bruises. But you tell me, what do you call it when love feels like a trap? 2 hours later, the motel landline rang. I didn't answer. But the voicemail said one sentence. Anna, you need to come home before someone else calls child services. The motel room was cold. Not from the air, from the waiting. From that slow, creeping dread that sinks into your skin when you realize someone's playing a longer game than you are. I didn't sleep. I just watched David sleep, one arm slung over his red dragon drawing like it was a shield. I checked the voicemail again. Anna, you need to come home before someone else calls child services. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She just planted a seed. That's the thing with people like her. They don't tear you down. They make sure everyone else watches you fall. By sunrise, her second post was up. I haven't heard from Anna in over 24 hours. Please keep David in your prayers. She's not well. There was even a picture attached. David, maybe 6 months ago, asleep on her lap. She looked like a saint. People flooded the comments again. Hope she gets the help she needs. Poor grandma. She's always been the stable one. You ever watch your own child's trauma be used for likes? I called my cousin Bree. She's the only one in the family who's ever said, "Are you okay?" and actually waited for the answer. She picked up on the second ring. "Where are you?" I told her everything. About the notebook. The recording. The drawing where I had no mouth. The voicemail. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You need proof. More than just your word. You know how she is." She was right. My mother's reputation could survive anything except a hard copy. So I drove back. Not to stay. Just long enough to get what I needed. The recording. The notebook. And maybe the nanny cam from when David was younger. I remembered I'd tucked it away in my old closet. If she'd ever forgotten it was there. Maybe it saw something I didn't. You ever feel like your life's about to shatter, and all you're doing is trying to keep someone else from holding the hammer? I pulled up to the house just after 9 a.m. The driveway was empty. Her car was gone. Probably church or grocery shopping, both places she could perform concern in front of an audience. I had maybe 40 minutes. David stayed in the car. He was coloring. I told him to keep the doors locked and left the engine running. The front door still had my key. She hadn't changed the locks, maybe because she didn't think I was brave enough to leave. Or maybe because she knew I'd come back. I went straight to the hall closet. The nanny cam was still there, tucked in the bottom drawer beneath old baby socks. I shoved it in my bag and turned to grab the notebook from my room, but paused. Her bedroom door was ajar. On the floor, a single crayon. Red. Broken in half. David's. Next to it, a candle. Unlit. Scented like apples and linen. Then on her dresser, a new photo. Framed. It was David. With her. But I'd never seen this one before. Because I wasn't in it. In the corner, a sticky note. He's safer this way. What if they don't want your child to forget you, just to stop needing you? I grabbed the notebook and the camera. Ran back to the car. David looked up at me and asked, "Are we done sneaking?" I nodded. But inside, I knew we weren't. Not even close. Back at the motel, I emailed everything to Bree. The audio. Photos of the notebook. Screenshots of her posts. A backup of the nanny cam once I got it to load. I didn't want revenge. I wanted protection. That same night, Bree messaged me a contact. Her friend worked in family advocacy, not just legally, but socially. "They'll help you get ahead of this," she said. Before she files something first. Because that's what I realized. My mother wasn't afraid of losing access to David. She was preparing to take him. She didn't want to raise my son. She wanted to erase me from the story. That's the thing no one tells you. You don't have to be declared unfit to lose your child. You just have to look unstable, tired, alone. And my mother knew exactly how to frame that picture. If someone raised you, does that mean they get to rewrite your child too? The next morning, I got a letter slid under our motel door. No postage. No envelope. Just 7 words. "See you in court. Grandma." She didn't yell. She didn't beg. She made herself the victim and me the villain. I used to think custody battles were only for broken marriages. Drunken fathers. Negligent mothers. Rich people with lawyers on speed dial. Not women like me. Not quiet widows who kept their heads down and their receipts saved. But that letter under the motel door? It shattered that illusion. No signature. Just 7 words. "See you in court. Grandma." I didn't wait. I called the number Bree gave me, the family advocacy contact. Her name was Janelle. She didn't sound shocked. She didn't gasp. When I told her what happened, she just said, "This isn't rare, Anna. Especially when a grandparent has access and thinks you're vulnerable. We'll get ahead of it." She used words like preemptive petition, declaratory statement, and protective custody guidance. I use words like what if, but she never hit him, and how do you fight someone who's already convinced the world she's a saint? That same day, she posted a new photo. David's old backpack on the kitchen chair. Caption: he starts kindergarten next year. I pray I still get to walk him in. Hashtag pray for Anna. You know what hurts? Not that strangers believed her, but that some family did too. My aunt texted, "Can't you two just talk? You're making a scene." Scene. Like this was a school play, and I was embarrassing the director. You ever feel like your truth sounds too unbelievable, simply because the villain smiles better in photos? That night, Janelle filed the first motion. I printed the recordings, the notebook, a transcript of the voicemail. We wrote a statement, not just about the emotional manipulation, but the pattern, the history. Because once I opened that door, more memories flooded in. Memories of me, age 6, locking myself in a closet after she told me Dad was gone because I never learned to stop whining. Memories of being told to smile at funerals so people wouldn't feel awkward. Memories of crying and being handed a mirror. No one likes a girl who can't keep it together. What if the reason you don't remember your childhood clearly is because someone rewrote it for you? The courtroom was beige. Quiet. No one looks good under fluorescent lights. She wore a pastel cardigan and pearls. I wore my late husband's watch, too big on my wrist, but grounding. David wasn't there. Thank God. But her lawyer was. And so was her prepared character testimony, complete with statements from concerned relatives. She never mentioned the notebook. She never addressed the audio. She just looked at the judge and said, "My daughter has always been fragile. Ever since her husband died, she hasn't been the same. I've only ever wanted to protect my grandson from instability." Janelle leaned in and whispered, "She's weaponizing your grief." "Your Honor," I said, my voice shaking, "she doesn't want to help me parent. She wants to erase me from the story." And then I placed the notebook on the table. Not the photocopy. The real one. The judge flipped through it. Read the line written 27 times. "Mommy cries because she was a bad wife." The courtroom went still. She didn't flinch. Didn't deny. She said, "Children process grief in strange ways." I was helping him understand it. He needed structure. He needed a reason. She looked at me and smiled. "You were too sad to be honest with him." She didn't want to raise my son. She wanted to erase me from the story. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just slid my phone forward and played the audio out loud. Her voice. Sweet. Measured. Cruel. "If you're a good boy, Mommy won't cry as much." "Okay." The judge held up one hand. "That's enough. You ever hear someone smile through cruelty and realize that's how they always controlled you?" Court was recessed. Temporary protection granted. David would remain in my custody, no unsupervised visits for her. I thought that would be the end of it. But when I got home, there was a package on the doorstep. No return address. Inside, a small figurine. The plastic knight. And a note. "He still loves me more. You'll see." I held the plastic knight in my hand for over a minute before I moved. David was asleep in the back seat, curled around a stuffed animal, not the knight. Because the knight apparently had already found its way home. She had been inside the motel. Not long. Not violently. But enough to remind me. This isn't over. Not because she loves him. Because she needs to win. I didn't tell David. I didn't want him to associate his safe space, this cramped little room with flickering lights and buzzing vents, with her. But I did tell Janelle. She called the police. They filed a report, but they didn't sound surprised. No forced entry. Nothing technically stolen. Maybe she dropped it off. Technically. That's how they talk when what's happening to you isn't physical enough to arrest, just terrifying enough to haunt. You ever realize the only reason someone didn't hit you is because words last longer? The next day, her post went viral. Not massive viral, but enough for the town. A grainy photo of a woman with her back turned at a motel parking lot. Caption: "I don't want to be the villain. I just want my grandson to be safe." She tagged the local mom group. Added the school district. Even hinted at emotional instability and concerning behavior in public. The comments burned. Someone needs to step in. She's not well. I've seen her. She always looks off. It spread like oil and water. Seeping into inboxes, group texts, the unspoken looks at preschool drop-off. Even the therapist asked gently, "Is there anyone else in your support system right now? What if your grief is the very thing they use to discredit your truth?" My older cousin invited me to brunch. Said it was just to check in. I knew better. We sat at a sunny table in a cafe she'd chosen, public, calm, impossible to scream in. She stirred her coffee like she was afraid of breaking the silence. Then she said, "I think you're escalating something that doesn't need to be a war." I stared at her. "She filed for custody," I said. "She manipulated my son. Rewrote his memory. Called child services on me." She sighed. "Anna, you've always been intense. You take things to heart. But she raised you. Maybe you just need to forgive her enough to let her in again. For David's sake. I stood up, left $10 for my untouched tea, looked her in the eye and said, if you think a woman who tells a child his mother killed his father deserves another chance, then maybe I was never safe in this family either. I walked out. I didn't say goodbye. That night, I packed everything we had into 2 suitcases. David's clothes. His drawings. My husband's watch. The night figurine I tossed into the motel trash. But it didn't feel like enough. So I took David to a store the next morning. Let him pick out a brand new toy. He chose a soft blue bear with button eyes and a tiny cape. His name's Brave, he said. Because we need one. She didn't want to raise my son. She wanted to erase me from the story. You ever realize you don't need someone to scream to feel afraid of them? That evening, I got an email. From the preschool. Not the teacher. The director. Subject, concerns regarding David's emotional environment. They'd received anonymous communications suggesting I might be unstable. They were required to follow up. It wasn't a threat. Not directly. But it was a warning. They weren't saying I was unfit. Just that maybe they'd been told I could be. What do you call it when someone poisons the well you drink from but still smiles when they pass you the cup? I filed for a restraining order. Named. Documented. Submitted everything. Janelle helped me push it forward fast. We had enough. And I changed our number. Blocked every family contact except Bree. I stopped trying to prove I was stable enough. And started proving she was dangerous even if she never raised her voice. The next night David brought me a drawing. Just 2 stick figures. Me and him. Above it, written in shaky letters. Here, we don't cry anymore. But in the corner, almost too faint to see, was a third figure. A shadow behind a window. She watches, he whispered. Even when we're brave. There's this moment after everything explodes when the debris stops falling, the noise fades, and the silence feels wrong. Not peaceful. Just unfamiliar. Because you spent so long defending yourself, you forgot what stillness without fear feels like. We moved. Not far. Just far enough to start over with new walls, new neighbors, new rules. David has his own room now. He picked the curtains space-themed with little rockets and moons. He sleeps better. He still doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's about normal things. Dinosaurs. Blueberries. Whether the moon has a bedtime. The last time I asked if he missed Grandma, he just shrugged. She said too many things. That was it. That's how 5-year-olds describe psychological trauma. She said too many things. The notebook is gone. I didn't keep it. Not because I forgave her, but because I didn't want David to grow up and find it one day. Some truths deserve to be fought. Others deserve to be buried with the war. I framed one of his new drawings. He gave it to me on my birthday. A stick figure version of me, holding his hand. In the background, a dragon. Blue. Smiling. At the top, he wrote, "We live with magic now." And I do. Not the fairy tale kind. The kind where surviving something you weren't meant to survive becomes a superpower. Bree told me something last week. That a woman from the church asked where we'd gone. Said my mother doesn't talk about me anymore. Only the boy, she'd said. She still calls him her angel. Says she raised him right. I don't respond to that stuff anymore. Let them think what they want. Let them spin their stories in soft tones and curated posts. Because I'm not the audience anymore. And I'm not explaining myself to people who only listen to smiles. Would you rather be called cruel for protecting your child? Or kind while watching him break? A week ago I got a box in the mail. No return label. Inside a family photo. Me, David, my husband. Original copy, not the one she scribbled on. Perfect condition. No note. Just that. Maybe it was an apology. Or a message. Or her way of saying you win. But I didn't keep it. I shredded it. Because anything from her still feels like a test. She said I was unstable. But unstable people don't rewrite children. You ever realize the worst thing they did to you was teach you to doubt your own alarm? I used to think silence was kindness. That if I just stayed small enough, quiet enough, grateful enough, I could keep the peace. But now I know. Silence only protects the ones who break you slowly. And I won't be silent anymore. Last night, David woke from a dream. He walked into my room, tugged my sleeve and whispered, "I had a dream Grandma knocked." But this time, I didn't open the door. I held him. And for the first time since the funeral, I fell asleep before dawn.